Well, hello and welcome to Legacy Podcast. This is the first podcast for Legacy Podcast that we have done. And my name is Jeff Hustner. This is my wife, Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Hustner.
We have our son, Joel, behind the camera, who started laughing at us already. And yeah, welcome here to this first episode. And we're excited to kick off a Legacy Podcast and begin to talk about legacy, right? As it applies to faith, family, finance, and really every area of your life. And we're still figuring this out as we're going right now. So as we already talked about briefly when we got started, I was going to ask Jennifer to just talk a little bit about why are we doing this?
Because you said we're doing this?
Then, yeah.
No, I had a thought as we were about to get started doing this that really this legacy and this podcast actually stems from our spiritual father, Brother Harry Gomes, because he always talked about getting a website up that he could be teaching through, and that never happened. And, him passing this
He passed away last year.
Yeah, he passed away this last year.
Depending when you're watching this. But
and then you popped up here this year, at the beginning of the year, said, hey, we're supposed to do a podcast. And then it dawned on me, this is really what he wanted to do. So the wisdom and stuff he poured into us, and I believe, and through God and what we've learned through our own experiences and through watching him and others around him and us gain a lot of wisdom through that.
That's true. That'll be a big part of what we
Yes.
talk about here, whoever would wind up being our guests or be a part of this podcast. Where did this all start, though? That's a great question. I don't really know the answer to that. A long time ago. But part of the journey with Legacy Podcast is just, I think, part of just, I think all of our life, like having a focus not just on ourselves, but even more as we've gotten more mature, the things for the next generation have become more and more important. In fact, I'm wearing a shirt right now. I'm looking at a sign. You can't see it, called Legacy Agency. One of our businesses is now called Legacy Insurance. So the concept of legacy and building things, the church that we're part of, livinghope.com, also very legacy oriented. So it's all about the next generation. And I think the number one reason is why we started this is another kind of tagline we've been messing around with is all things Jesus, but how to have generational impact for Christ in everything you do. And why us? Why are we qualified? Well, we're not. That's probably it, right? We're qualified because we're standing here and we're talking right now, and we do love Jesus and walk with him and in every aspect of our life. So, but as we get into this, the vision of this is to create content, to create a conversation, to help equip people to create a legacy. I've sat down recently with different people, talking about legacy and how important that is at different ages in life, and the next generation, and creating something that lasts beyond past yourself. So that's what a legacy means a lot to me. But talk to me a little bit about, we spoke this last week. We had a nice date for a couple days, just as we kind of unplugged and started to think through what this podcast would be. But one of the things, a concept you brought up, is that legacy isn't necessarily the world's logic. Do you remember that? I thought that might be a topic to get into. I think we've talked a little bit about why this is starting, the genesis of it. And honestly, I don't think we know 100%. We'll just learn it as we go, kind of like how everything else has gone.
Yes.
Like when we started a church, we didn't even know what the name of the church was as we drove out the driveway. We just went. And I think part of legacy, when you even look biblically, like those people that left, when you go to Hebrews 11, the biggest legacy and look to the next generation are those who just walked when they were supposed to walk. I think of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And we're not going to get into all that today, but it is legacy. Legacy is not something that is necessarily the world's logic.
Correct. A lot of times, when we were talking, it's like the world will say, once your kids hit 18, they're out the door, they have their own life, you're doing your own life. And it's like there's a division going on. And I remember in college and even before, and that's when a lot of hey, women are in the workforce. It wasn't even a question of, was I going to go to college? It was, you're going. And so being there, but my whole dream and goal was I wanted to be home with my kids.
Hmm.
And it was an opposite messaging, because the messaging I was getting, and a lot of women my age back then and even today, is you need your own thing. You need your own career. You can't depend on a man. You can't depend on anything. You need the freedom, and you can have it all. You can have your career. You can have your kids. You can have everything. And that's a recipe for burnout. But so my goal, my dream was, and my prayer was, God, it was really help me start a business to where it could pay me to where I could be home with my kids, and it would pay me regardless of what my husband was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's before I met you. That's before everything. And so, but that was and I
Before
speak
that
it.
fateful day of
Yes.
meeting me. Yeah.
Yes. But it was a totally different, because a lot of my friends went into the corporate world. They went into, and
Right.
that was their main, and that was a lot of my focus actually in my 20s, was getting a business starting, getting a business. And it wasn't really on family. It was on getting myself established. And so, but there's a lot of lies that we could be, that the world is telling us that's important, that at the end of the day, when you look back, I know a lot of women who didn't have kids and they got their career started, and well, they're in their, 40s, 50s, can't have kids. They look back and go, what? I believe this. And they look back and they have nothing, no legacy, nothing to show for it. And so,
Yeah. So as you're talking legacy,
yes,
your immediate words out of your mouth are family. That's what I'm hearing.
yes,
Me being in the business world, a lot of times legacy is like, what am I building in business? Not but I'm
mm-hmm,
just saying different perspectives. Men or women in business, I think, could think that way. Psalm 127, 3-5 talks about how children are a reward and they are a legacy that lives on.
yes,
So it's interesting because I think if you ask people what legacy means to them, it probably means different things.
yes.
So for us to give our definition, I guess, here today, or attempt to, uh, helps to set the stage for what we're looking to do with Legacy Podcast. So within that, family's core, right? What are we doing to pour into the next generation? We live in a community here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where we're around the Amish and the Mennonites, but specifically even the Amish. Like, they really think generation to generation, from what
Yes.
we understand, and how they build farms, how they grow. And if you just step back even just 80 years ago, 100 years ago, I mean, that is for the last several thousand years how people lived. Was you would plan your legacy would be around generally a faith and then a family as well, and within that, finance is the other part, the career part, because you would learn skills from your parents, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and your grandparents. So, where we go with this podcast, I'm sure we're going to have different guests, different weeks where we'll have different topics, around faith, around marriage, around kids, around business, around church.
Mm-hmm.
One of the we've had a church now almost 5 years, um, which was not on either of our radar, but has become part of the legacy, I think, of our family, and is building that part of our life out with ministry. Um, so we've talked about the logic of the world. We talked about.
But let
You're
me
not
ask
done
you
with
a
that.
question. I want to know
Go for
why
it.
why do you think things transformed into this way that society is when it comes to legacy?
Oh, like the
Like, how do you think
definition.
we got here? Like, why did why is it this way?
That's a good question. Why do you think?
Well, I'm asking you, why do you think?
I tried to flip it. Joel's used to the flip and he's cringing. I think a lot of, not to like harp on a point, but a lot of how most people walk, whether it's within a church or outside of a church, is usually a very selfish, uh, focused manner. So it's not so much about even the other person in a relationship, let alone the next generation. It's more about, how do I live my best life? How do I get what I need? And when we go to scripture and we read in Ephesians 5, and you can see this relationship, for example, of a husband and a wife coming together, and Christ being the bridegroom and the bride, and how legacy comes through laying your life down for another. So it's actually the exact opposite of, I think, to answer your question, of a lot of how we think, or this. And there's many cultures now in the world, like, right, we go to India, we go to China, we go to Africa, we go to different cultures. Those are just a few where this conversation is a different conversation. In fact, people can listen to this from all over the world, and they're thinking, well, legacy means this. It's very clear, versus somebody in maybe the Western culture, it means something different. So I think in our culture, though, it's just been, I mean, it's been a process for generations to be independent, to live on our own. And that has become almost to the definition of success, I think, to a degree, is if you do this, do this, do this, you'll be successful, or you'll have made it, or you'll feel validated in what I've done has been something worth living for. Whereas I think our thinking is like, something worth living for is something that will live on past what we have lived for, if that makes sense.
That's good. Yes. I think also, the age of transportation, because when you do look at the Amish around, the reason they're around their family is, horses can only go so far. They're always building their kids' homes and whatever within buggy distance. And so with the airplane, cars, all of that, you think, oh, well, I'm just jump in the car. And then before you know it, well, I'm just a plane ride away. And then before you know it, you're around the world. So you don't even think about living by your family. You think about going to where you get your best job or where the best opportunity is. And, some people are called not to be around their family. Some people are called elsewhere. And you have people in the military that they have no choice. They are away. And so, it just depends on what the calling is on the life of the person.
Yeah, and legacy is not geographically.
It's not geographic.
It's not a geographical thing. So, like, I don't know where our kids will wind up. It's not necessarily a geographical thing. I know you're using the example of the Amish, but I think it's more of a mindset and a thinking of.
But sometimes it can be geographic.
Yeah.
Just in the fact that, in our culture, it's like, hey, once your kid turns 18, they're out of the house. That to me is geographic.
Type of geography.
Yes, that's that's
where kick you out of here because I'm
right. Kick out. Maybe like that, once you're 18, you're out, and good luck. Although with the finances and things, now more kids are coming home because they can't afford to live out on their own. It's interesting how things will tend to come back around because of circumstances.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of topics. I'm just grabbing my notes. On legacy, I mean, who's somebody, I guess, in your life who you've seen who you think has left an amazing legacy, and why?
That's all.
We didn't prep with that. That's not even in these.
I know. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why don't you go first?
Because ladies first. I could answer that
Yes,
easily,
answer it.
actually. I could think of Brother Harry Gomes, who you mentioned, who was a spiritual dad to us, and 1 Corinthians 4:15, that we'll have many teachers but not many fathers. In my mind, why he would have left a legacy is what we see now. He's been a year since he's passed away, and we still have about 480 kids, boys, young men, I should say, in Sesway International School of Excellence. You have had thousands of kids graduate from that who have gone on. You have had impact. And when I'm saying legacy for him, it's impact past his death, really, because he is gone now. And you still have ministries that he was a part of planting, thousands of churches that are growing, and those churches are growing. Business-wise, he was very successful in business, had a lot of impact, which God used that then to bless and have lands for the International School of Excellence and for the church. So part of his legacy, or who would be an example, not from the Bible, but somebody that we know, that would be my example. How about you?
Well, what I was thinking of is, a lot of people will never meet someone like him. Like he definitely is an extraordinary individual. But I think it's important to understand also in legacy that even if you didn't come from someone who you'd want to uh, pass along the same kind of life, you can still learn from that and still learn from legacy. So even if let's say you may have the best parents, or you may have had parents that maybe weren't there for you, or maybe you don't even know who your parents are, but you could still learn what not to do or what to do moving forward. And so I think it's important, like, to continue to look down in your generation and go, what do we want to teach our kids and our grandkids and down, and what do we not want to pass on? What was from our, and no one's
Because
perfect.
legacy may not be a good thing.
It may not be a good thing, but you can turn the bad to good by doing the opposite and saying, I know the fruit of this was bad, but I would like that different in my kids. And here's the thing, we're not going to be perfect. So our kids may be like, look, as much as we tried and as much as we still messed up, and there's still stuff from our parents and our grandparents and back that follow through that we don't even realize we're doing or not doing.
And that comes back to Jesus too, because the bloodline, the blood mark of Christ, the restoration of our own hearts, removing, generational things.
Yes.
I know that's become a part of our legacy with our family is the love of Jesus, number one, because that wasn't something in my past. I don't think so much in your family's past.
Not mine. Yep.
Business success in today's standards, that wasn't something. Marriage success, part of the legacy. Children, pointing because there's one behind the camera. All these are part of legacy, and some of it is just, I think, the legacy of just your time with the Lord on your own. My time with the Lord on my. It's not like doing things. It's being, and allowing that to lead and guide, which goes back, I think, to what we started when we started the podcast, which is obedience. Like, why are we here today? It's really obedience. And if we teach, whether it's the people around us, our children, each other, ourselves, to obey how we're being led, that puts it in God's hands. And now it's up to him, really, what the legacy is. Because I know I'm Psalm 113, 7, 8. I'm just dust and ash. Yes. I know I'm nothing. I really am nothing apart from him. John 15, 5. We've been going through the fruit of the vine and talking about that. But legacy is deeply ingrained into walking with Jesus.
Absolutely. And I believe a lot of it, if you have the right perspective, and the perspective is an eternal perspective.
Right.
So what happens on this earth is, this is all just stuff, like material things, all that, like,
it's grass that's here today, gone tomorrow.
Yes.
Which is yes.
And a lot of times I remember in early 20s, it's like, oh, I've got my dream board and I want the house and this car and this and that. And as you get older, you realize none of that matters. None of that matters. But what matters is the eternal's perspective. Did you do what the Lord has called you to do? Did you do it in excellence? And when you die, are you going to hear, well done, good and faithful servant? There's rewards in heaven. There's crowns in heaven. Like, those are the things that we should be wanting to attain. The stuff that the world...
there's legacy left behind, and then there's legacy that's stored as well. His legacy comes from the greatest servants, I believe. So
yes,
which is what we keep going back to.
Very much so. So it's easy to get caught up in the world. It's easy to get caught up in what the world says is a good legacy, because a lot of times, I remember a saying that my dad used to say when I was a kid, and he'd say, hey, whoever dies with the most toys wins. That was like a saying, and that was all through the thing, like, and that was the mindset.
I never heard that one.
No, you haven't? No. Yeah, whoever dies with the most toys wins. So it's like, that was your success.
I heard getting while the getting's good. That's Charlie.
But that was their idea of success. Their idea of you had a great life means look at all you had.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, as I was getting older, because I didn't grow up like we were middle class. We did well. My father did well, but it wasn't like wealth as far as the way you would see a wealthy person. But as I got to know wealthy people, I realized behind the doors, not all, but some, it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And I knew that's not what I want. Like, I don't want to be working all the time and not know my kids. I don't want to be getting stuff and just giving my kids stuff and not me.
It's not too exciting of a
No.
legacy.
No.
So whoever's got the biggest stack at the end does not determine one's legacy.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because people who think that way, I've known.
And that could be a stack in ministry if you want to make it religious.
It could be, yeah.
It could be a stack in finance. It could be a stack in, you pick the category of life, relationships. It doesn't mean there's legacy there. And it doesn't mean it was actually done on purpose for what God wanted. And that's a dangerous place for us to be. There's the one scripture, I think it's in Luke 7, where they tell Jesus, we did all these things in your name. And he's like, get away from me. I didn't even know you. Yeah. So legacy, I think part of it for Jesus is just getting to know who we are and allowing him to live through us creates legacy. So sorry I interrupted you, but
no, that's good. That. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So when you see your family and creating legacy, like what are some of the advice that you give your friends with their families? Is there anything that you've heard them or seen any thought process that you're like, that's maybe not?
Yeah. I think I used to give a lot of advice and now I don't give much. And that comes from legacy and wisdom, I think. We give counsel where people ask for counsel. I've learned that. So you asked me a question on what do I tell people about legacy? Well, now we're doing this, and whoever watches it.
Right.
But how many people actually come to us for counsel versus am I just telling people what I think? So it's very few people do I actually give counsel to now in my life because I stopped just giving advice.
Well, you see, most people never even.
Well, they don't follow it, one, because they didn't want it. And Jesus
really
says, never cast your pearl before swine.
Yeah, that's true.
So don't take what God has given you and cast it before others who aren't even wanting it. It doesn't even make sense. So we'll see.
And sometimes those that know you the most can't receive from you.
Yeah.
Like Jesus in his own hometown. Like he could go out, do miracles all over the place. Does that mean he couldn't do miracles at his hometown? No, it's because the people in his hometown didn't receive him.
Yeah, we were just watching something on that last night.
Yeah.
When we become too familiar with people, we might miss the legacy that's being left right in front of our eyes. Whether that's me with you or vice versa, or with our children or people we know.
And I think you can learn from anyone.
1,000%.
Whether
everybody's leaving some kind of legacy, right?
Yes, and everybody has a gifting or something that you can learn from your kids to all the way up.
Yeah.
To even if it's what I don't want to do, you could learn something from everybody in every situation.
We have a lot of good examples across the board of things not to do.
Yes.
And then a few on what to do.
Yes.
But the more I've walked, those are few and far between.
And even, there's a difference between the talk and the walk. Because you can say the right things.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Talk the talk and walk the walk. Have you ever seen anyone who talked one way but walked another?
Most people.
Have you ever talked one way and walked?
Yeah, I definitely have. Could be a hypocrite. Yeah. We want to have our talk match our walk. I think that becomes part of legacy.
And I think
as we grow.
Yeah. And I think too, there's different areas like where you may be strong in one area, but not as strong in another. So a legacy, like for instance, on faith, like we may feel like we've had pretty good track record in that department. But when you go to health and eating habits and exercise, what legacy have we left our kids there? Like I say, that one's lacking. We definitely need to beef up that side of it more. So there's areas that, and that does leave a legacy of, you want your kids and you want a long life. You want your kids to have a long life. But, and you look up the line, you're like, well, this is how I ate. It works its way down. So changing those habits, is something probably everyone out there probably is strong in at least one area when it comes to legacy going down.
Good and bad.
Good and bad.
I think we all are strong.
Yes.
Not so strong in certain areas. So,
Yes.
but I think that'll be part of the discussion in this podcast is talking about both sides of that, right?
Yes.
In our lives, other people's lives, biblically. You look at people in the Bible who are these men of faith, women of faith, and yet how messed up were they?
Yes.
Noah was a drunk, but yet quite a legacy from Noah, if you've not heard of him. David, was an adulterer and a murderer, yet quite a legacy came out of him. Like there were bad things that happened and bad habits. Abraham, through his life, more and more obedient, more and more faithful, but early on, a lot of lying, a lot of things that, and then of course, generationally, Isaac, Jacob followed into those suits too. So,
yes,
nobody's perfect.
And no one's going to die perfect.
Right.
So we're all on a learning
Jesus
journey.
was the only perfect.
Yes.
So, and he has left quite a legacy for us to look at. So
yes.
If there was one example that I would look to the most, it would be the life of Jesus and how he lived the perfect will of the Father. And how do you live a perfect legacy? You walk in the perfect will, which is very difficult for anyone to do.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Well, the thing is first you have to spend time with God. You have to hear his voice and you have to obey it. But what makes it hard is you have man around you and man's opinions. And so a lot of times what God is telling you to do will probably ruffle someone's feathers. So someone who doesn't want to ruffle feathers, that can be a hard thing to do.
Do you have any examples of that?
A lot of examples of that, which we'll be getting into in future, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, we haven't shared a whole lot of story.
Well, this is more of an introduction, but
I think we're going to get into a lot of stories.
Yes, there's going to be a lot of stories.
A lot of things that we walked through. Others
we'll change names, so those of you that know us, we won't be calling anyone out, good or bad.
Use my name if it's me. We'll call this guy Hefe. It's not Jeff. He was Hefe. And here's where he made mistakes.
Yes. Definitely.
Is that okay to do?
That's okay.
Because I'll probably use myself as an example.
Well, using us as an example is one thing. We'll probably have to ask our kids permission if we can use them.
I always ask permission later.
Yes. Oh, well, later.
They're used to that. Sunday, yeah. Joel just brought that up. So Sunday afternoon, I say, hey, thanks for letting me use you as an example.
Yes.
Everything's always material for Sunday's services at Living Hope. So Legacy Podcast, legacypodcast.com is our site. This has been the first episode. Yes. You've done a great job. Thanks for showing up.
Yes.
And just having a discussion, whether people listen to this or watch this, it's exciting to just get something going, something that part of our legacy. I think that on my part, I've attempted to teach our kids is like, you don't have to get it right. You just got to get it going.
Yes.
And then we'll figure it out.
And two, if there's any topics that you would like us to talk about, please let us know. And we'd be happy to talk about those topics. Whether we know a lot about it or not, we'll be happy and we'll let you know. But, it's exciting to see what we'll be talking about over the next.
What God's going to do.
Yeah.
Well, we're already at 30 minutes. Wow. Goes kind of quick when you just have a conversation. I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you for doing this.
Yes.
Thank you, Joel, for helping. We'll see you on another episode. This was an introductory episode, getting into legacy. I'm excited to see the topics we get into as we move forward and just help equip people for whatever God has for them in their
Yes.
journey. So thanks a lot for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.
Goodbye.